There's a line that I know, as do many here, that expresses the story of this exhibition. You can find it in the Hebrew Bible, in the New Testament, and also in the Testament of Bob Marley. It is this, from Psalm 118, Matthew 21st, Mark 12, Acts 4, and from Bob Marley, a psalm in 1970. The line is very simple. The stone that the builder refused will become the head cornerstone. That's the story we're talking about today. And we want to thank all of those who came before, the ones whose names fit at the cornerstone now. There's so many in this show, from Jethro Luke and his family down to the workers and vendors over the generations, the students beginning with James W.C. Pennington, and finally the faculty in the 1960s and 70s. They are stories of New Haven and of Yale, both together. They are embodied in more than 180 Black men and women whose photographs shine in this show, more than 200 people in the university's first century who were enslaved to Yale's founders, and those who led her more recently, including the founders of the Afro-American Cultural Center just 55 years ago. David, you could move to the next slide, please. We want to give special thanks to all those who's labored so ardently for this show, especially my brother in spirit, David Jon Walker, who will speak in just a moment, the lead designer of this show. Thanks also to those who include Timika Bethel, Robert Laird Brown, Jennifer Coggins, Mohammed Diallo, Regina Mason, Hope McGrath, Carlin Robinson, and Charles Warner. And in addition to Chaz, a number of the other people are here with us today. We're grateful to all of these people who made this show happen. Next slide. And there are so many people. We don't expect that you can read this, but if you come to see the show, you will be able to see this slide. We're grateful to all the many people, those who are blessed memory, as well as those who are alive today, who made this show possible. We're particularly grateful to colleagues in the Yale Schwartzman Center who've made such epic central space available to us and made it available through March of next year. We're also likewise grateful to many administrative colleagues, and we need to note and give special thanks today to Susan Gibbons, Kim Goff-Cruz, Barbara Rockenbach, and Michelle Light, and also to all of our faculty colleagues, including especially David Blight. It's been a long, long time to get this exhibition to this place. Black people, of course, have been part of the place that we know as Yale from its beginning in 1701, just as they have been part of the New Haven since it was founded in 1638. They were not, though, central to the institution's storytelling of our place. Next slide. They now sit at the center of Yale thanks to this show. This show is part of a new beginning, an opportunity for more stories to be told. And you will see at the end of our show, we do not end with a period, quite the difference. We end with the ellipses. So this is just one of many stories, and we expect so many more to come. As 2026 approaches, we look forward to even more shining light on truth. Next year is the 250th anniversary of this nation and the 325th anniversary of the establishment of this university. The photos which you see here in this show, and particularly in this image you see right now, proudly placed at the entrance to the president's room, are the earliest photographs of Black staff from the 1860s and 1870s. They're photographs that have been around for a long time. So they weren't hidden, as it were, but for too long they were ignored. We have now put these photographs here at the entrance to the president's room. These important people like John Creed and Robert M. Park, who we'll meet in a little bit, and many other early staff members photographed at Yale. These were oftentimes people who were here longer than anybody else. One I would note is Charles McClin, who we've heard about in this. Chaz spoke about him 2 years ago, the university carpenter for 4 decades. McClin was central to university life, and he lived for a good long number of years at 91 High Street, literally at the heart of Yale. If you came here, if you had stuff sent here, it was oftentimes to McClin. He was also, of course, notable in New Haven. He was the first Black person elected to office in New Haven. Next slide. David will now talk more about both the design of the show and many parts of it. I'll come back for a little bit, and then we'll be happy to take your questions. This is a show that, again, is at the beginning of what we're doing, where we are now and where it may take us. We have to keep on marching, keep on talking, keep on curating, keep on designing, keep on exhibiting, marching to Freedom Land. David, great to have you now take the show over.
All right. Thank you, Michael. And thank you, Charles. So I had the distinct privilege and opportunity to think about Yale's history through the lens of exhibition and space. So in 2024, summer of 2024, Harlan Robinson, the exhibition's manager at the Schwarzman, asked if we would be willing to curate and design an exhibition for the Schwarzman. And the quick short answer is absolutely, like, yes. So what space do we have to work with? And she sends over this PDF document that ends up being 20 pages, and it's just walls upon walls upon walls. And so she says we've got multiple floors, 8,000 plus square feet, entrances, just many entrances, and 100% vinyl, meaning we were not allowed to install artifacts, i.e. framed images and other things on the wall and in the space. So that presents somewhat of a challenge, but not that big of a challenge. But to migrate from the 1,800 square feet of space that we had at the New Haven Museum to 8,000 plus square feet at the Schwarzman Center meant a lot more content, a lot deeper contemplation of how to organize and curate so much more space, which ultimately meant an updated focus on the content and what we should add to best tell this story of mostly Yale. The New Haven Museum show focused primarily on Yale, New Haven, and the community and the growth of these two institutions. So the exhibition, though, now being on Yale's campus versus at the New Haven Museum, would center the seldom told Yale campus history for a more complete picture of how the current life at Yale has evolved in where we are today. And so the name of the show is Black Lives at Yale and in New Haven, featuring more and more content. And so the show opened March 23rd, or really, was it March 23rd, 24th of this year? And we've had tons of impact and opportunities for visibility. We opened the week of the Afro-American Cultural Center's anniversary. They celebrated 55 years. To date, we've had 50 plus scheduled tours, alumni reunion weekends. We had an opportunity to lecture and also give tours, Bulldog Days for people visiting campus, parents' weekends, and more. And here's an image of one of our co-curators, Regina Mason, who is a descendant of William Grimes, who's featured in this exhibition, giving a tour to her family. So we've had an opportunity to host many groups, including families of featured individuals. The Transitional Year Project Alumni Group, which had a symposium last week. The Pathways to Arts and Humanities students who spent 2 weeks on Yale's campus learning about different ways in art and that art and humanities can impact the community. Also New Haven school students and teachers, as well as the Yale and Slavery Institute had a week at the Beinecke, as well as spending time with the exhibition. And to that end, showing images of some of these tours. This is the TYP Symposium group. These are alumni between the years of 1968 to 1972. And then these are images from the Yale Pathways group, which in this image, they're giving presentations about people that they've researched on the wall, and also ways that the exhibition could be extended. And Charles here is giving a tour of the space to the Gilder Lehrman Yale and Slavery Initiative group. So there are some major differences from the New Haven Museum exhibition to this to our current one. So this one features early Black families at Yale, early Black staff. It also features students and graduates. There are more students on the wall than we had in the 1831 college room. We also feature campus vendors who, if you've been on York Street and thinking about the history and the presence of different people on campus and around the community, those campus vendors are still present. We also talk about the history of the Afro-American Cultural Center and the beginning of the Afro-American Studies major, as well as early Black faculty.
So just
All right, so
talk a little bit about the families, and we really center families, not just an individual. This involves Jethro Luke, but also his first wife, his second wife, his children, including Gad's wife, all kinds of people in the Luke family. And people who've been with us for a long time will remember that Jethro and Gad Luke were among the people who worked to build Connecticut Hall. We like to say when this came out that Jethro and Gad Luke were both free people, but it turned out we were incorrect. And it turned out that Gad Luke remained enslaved and was only freed during the construction of Connecticut Hall. His father bought his freedom as he would buy all of his children. So this is one of the families who were at this place. And if you look at this, you can see that where the Jethro Luke residence was is very close to where Schwartzman Hall is. One of the things about this show is that it's very hyper local. We have many things that are right around the area. Next slide. Park and Bassett family, again, very much local. Right across the street from Schwartzman Center is Grove Street Cemetery, which is where Robert M. Park, you see on the left, his son-in-law, Ebenezer Don Carlos Bassett, and his grandson, Ulysses Simpson Grant Bassett, are all buried. All three played key roles, as did the women of the Park and Bassett families. And again, it's both about people like Robert M. Park, who worked for 5 decades as custodian at Yale, but was very important in the intellectual enterprise of science and in so much else in New Haven, as was Ebenezer Don Carlos Bassett, the first Black man to be made an ambassador of the United States, and his grandson, Ulysses S. Grant Bassett. Next slide. The Alston Manning family, again, is very important, not just the individuals, each of whom did amazing things, whether it's Osborne or Isom Alston, John Wesley Manning, and other Manning. Again, these are oftentimes people who both worked at Yale and are nearby in Grove Street Cemetery. Next slide. And the Creed and Duplex family, again, a very important family in the history of Yale and the history of New Haven. John Creed, who's pictured here, we found this photograph in the last year or so, and it's proudly shown in the show. And earlier, we did not know of a photo of John Creed before we found this in the Skull and Bones student yearbook in the 1860s. He married Eliza Vashti Duplex. Her father had been one of the Black patriots of the American Revolution. She herself was one of the great people of New Haven, the first school teacher in New Haven. And John Creed and Vashti Creed had a son, Cortland Van Rensselaer Creed, who became the first person able to enroll at Yale as a Black person and graduated with a medical degree in 1857. So these families show the families of their time and the importance of families throughout the university and throughout the city's life. David.
All right. All right. So we also feature the story of the 1831 college, which would have been or could have been the first Black college in America. And if you've not been to the show, I implore you to read this passage that we have actually featured, that was part of the newspaper or printed in the newspaper. And it says, "You are hereby required to warn the freemen of said city to meet at the City Hall in said city on Saturday, the 10th of September, 1831, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, to take into consideration a scheme said to be in progress for the establishment in this city of a college for the education of colored youth, and to adopt such measures as may be deemed expedient relative to the same." So this college, which would have been the first HBCU in America, or historically Black college in America, the proposal of this college fell 700 to 4 against. And so it's wonderful to come through and listen and hear about this school. And also we feature the words of the Reverend Alexander Crummell, who's featured prominently in the show. His quote, we read the future by the past, speaks prominently about who we are, where we've been, and where we are going. So here's an image of Michael giving a tour to staff after we initially installed the vinyl on the wall. Here's an image, a great shot of the architecture in the space and how we've transformed this space from the beige white walls to having period specific wallpaper to kind of transport you to an era of when these students would have possibly been students. And so we feature, as far as the early Black students, we feature 79 images of some of the earliest students on campus, from James W. Pennington, who was the first in the 1830s, to Shirley Graham, who graduated from the School of Drama in the 1930s. We also feature images of the campus vendors. You've got David Breckenridge, as well as Candy Sam. As well as Joseph Hannibal, or George Hannibal. And these are in proximity to the students, so they're right behind the students in the show. And then downstairs we have images from the Smith Family album of the Randolph Lindsley collection. And these images just provide a glimpse of Black New Haveners who had their portraits taken in New Haven photo studios in the late 1800s. We also share the story of William Grimes, who was the first person to write a slave autobiography. Born in Savannah, Georgia, he writes a harrowing tale after he escapes from Savannah, Georgia by boat to New York, and then he walks from New York to New Haven and settles in Litchfield, Connecticut. Upon being found by a bounty hunter and threatened to be returned to the South, he is offered the opportunity to purchase his freedom for the said amount of $500 at the time. And so at this point, he's settled in Litchfield. He's started a family. He's got a wife. He owns a home, has a business as a barber, and sells his home and writes this book in order to raise money to secure his freedom and remain free. Also, on the lower level of the exhibition, we highlight the Black Studies major and the founding of the Afro-American Cultural Center, championed by 3 students. So you've got Don Ogilvy at the top, you've got Armstead Robinson and Glenn Deshabert at the bottom. And so the house, the Afro-American Cultural Center, is fondly known as the house because it was founded in a house on Chapel Street. And so there's an image of that house, and then an image of the current location of the house on at 211 Park. We also highlight early Black faculty at Yale. And so astonishingly, 1973, which is not that long ago, is the year that the first Black professor is awarded tenure. And that's John Blassingame to the left. Sylvia Arden Boone is the first Black woman to be awarded tenure in 1988. And they both are in the Department of Afro-American Studies or Black Studies. And Charles Switchell Davis is the first head of college of the current day Grace Hopper College, then known as Calhoun. So as far as digital offerings, we've put together Jennifer Coggins, Hope McGrath, in addition to Michael Morand and Charles Warner. And I, as a designer, have put together a website highlighting the early Black students at Yale. When we originally embarked on this project, there were a little over 250 students. And now that number has risen to 300 students, thanks to our student researcher, Mohammed Diallo, who is a current senior at Yale. And we really, really implore you to scan this QR code, visit the website, learn about the histories and stories of these important individuals that went out, that came to Yale, studied, went back to their communities, and did very, very important things. So what's next? I'll let Michael and Charles jump back in to talk about what's next and thoughts on what's next.
Go ahead, John.
Well, certainly, I think we have to make the best use of the time we have left while the show is up to make sure that our community gets through to see this. People who have had the opportunity to come through and see Shining Light and Truth have been moved. Certainly, they were moved when it presented itself, some of the material presented itself as the 1831 room in the first Shining Light, but this sort of expanded view is quite overwhelming in a good way with the visual layout that David has provided, but it's also overwhelming in terms of sort of the flood of information that you get by being present in the show, and then having a guided tour just really kind of expands your understanding of what life in New Haven was like for Black people, but certainly what the presence at Yale was like for both early employees and early students. So making sure that the public has more opportunity to directly interface with the exhibit is certainly what's next for me.
I would co-sign that. The opportunity through March 8th, 2026, we've got, more than 4 months. They're not forever, but they're good amount of time to keep bringing people to this show. We had a wonderful meeting last Tuesday with about 35 local leaders of the NAACP, of the Board of Alders, of community groups. Many have been to this show before. Many it was the first time. Everybody noted how important it was and how important it is to bring their neighbors and particularly school students. So we've got a number of things this week, next week, and in coming weeks going through March with public schools, Chaz taking the lead in that. That's very important. And even if you're not right here, again, if you can get yourself to New Haven, you can see this show since it's up through March 8th. So I would agree with Chaz. It's important that we really take advantage of this opportunity. And it would be good in any time to have this show, but it really makes real difference in this time that we live in this country right now. And with America 250 coming up, to restate and to really state in no uncertain terms that Black people have been part of this place from the beginning of New Haven, of Yale, and are central to this place. It is bad that it would never happen before, but it is important that it's happening now, and that we make sure that it doesn't ever leave. So it's important at any time, but right now it's more important than ever. So encourage everybody to make an effort to get people to come to the show, to understand what it means, and to take the story going forward.